Hello, my name is Salamon. I'm a drummer, born and raised in Jerusalem, Israel, and now currently living and based in Amsterdam for quite some years now. I'm coming this year to Jazzahead with my quite large band, the Salamon group, whom I lead. We're an 8-piece band, so an octet, and we all met actually in Holland, and we all live here. We're all originated from different places, so we have musicians from Portugal, Scotland, Catalonia, Denmark, Israel, and the Netherlands. And maybe you can hear some effects of that mishmash in our music. We have one album out there in the world already that was released last year. It's called Unfollow the Leader. And we're now having super much fun actually working on our brand new album, the second album, that is all music that I've written this year during this whole quarantine shebang. So we're super excited to finally be able to share it with everybody and release it to the world. And we're having a lot of fun working on it at the moment. So it's really exciting to play some of it also for everybody. Yeah, the music actually, which we explored very different directions and different stories and different influences in this second album, and it's quite, I think, an extrovert and quite an eventful album. So it a little contradicts the life we live in at the moment with all this static and silence. So that even makes it more special and quite liberating. So it's really an important feeling for me to be able to share also with my band members who I love and also with the world this, yeah, that we're still moving. And we're super excited to be, of course, this year in Bremen to play for everybody this music. So we're very excited and hope you enjoy the music and hope to meet you in person real soon and get back to traveling real soon and see you all everywhere in the world. We're super ready and yeah, the luggage is already packed and waiting at the door. So thanks again for everything. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and stay safe.
Hello everyone, my name is Sunmi Hong. I'm a drummer, band leader, and composer, and a stranger from South Korea. I live in the Netherlands for 10 years now. I'm really happy to be part of Jazzahead 2021 with my quintet. It's the first time we play in Jazzahead, and we are very excited to perform for all of you. And the quintet has been grown so much past 4 years. We did a really intense tours and we made 2 CDs. First CD is called First Page. It means first chapter of my life when I came to the Netherlands. So it was a gift for myself when I graduated conservatory for my master. And second CD I released last year actually. In the middle of the corona, but I would have not mind to release the CD, and the CD has to arrive from somewhere now actually. This is my CD. I don't know if it's in focus. So I released this CD and I'm pretty proud of it, but I didn't have anywhere to show. So I thought it's a great chance to bring it because I have thousands of CDs printed. And it's yeah, it's covered with dust, so you can check it out on my website, on my label's website, or on anywhere to do with the Dutch jazz music. You can find it. The quintet is very special to me. They really made me shape as a human being, having responsible with something that I create. Alessandro on the bass, Alistair Payne on trumpet, and Niccolo Ricci on tenor sax, and Young Lee on the piano, but he unfortunately, he had to go to army service in Korea. So we have a Cherin Im, another Korean piano player. We are really happy with it. And nobody is actually Dutch in the band, but we are always presented as a Dutch band. Which we are very proud of, actually. Decided to gather together, even though it was a pandemic, with a 1.5 meter away apart from each other. We decided to cook a bunch of meal which are from their own countries also. So I cooked lunch for Korean style lunch, and Alistair cooked a Scottish Christmas dish, and 2 Italians, they cooked the next day on the 26th. So they cooked also Italian traditional Christmas dish. This special glue, and I hope you can hear it from the concert. And we played the concert on the 29th of April. I hope you didn't miss it. In case you missed it, you can always find us on YouTube and Instagram, Facebook, everywhere you can find us. And thanks for your support. And I hope to see you at some point in Rio, in your festivals, or in your venues, or in your houses, maybe. And yeah, a lot of love from Amsterdam.
Hello everybody, my name is Kirsi-Marja Harju and I'm a Finnish trumpet player, singer and a composer. And yeah, I started playing the trumpet when I was 9 years old, and I believe that the trumpet chose me and I didn't choose the trumpet. I was playing this Finnish traditional instrument called kantele. It's like a harp, but in a horizontal way. And yeah, like every children, they played it. But then I wanted to play the violin. But somehow they just, at the music school, they put me in a pocket trumpet group. And yeah, I started to play the pocket trumpet. At first, I wasn't fully convinced if it's something for me, but I was making progress pretty fast and I got a lot of encouragement. I enjoyed it then also, and I could play more. So yeah, I think trumpet chose me. I love to sing in choirs, vocal groups, and yeah, I'm from a small town close to Helsinki, and when I was 19, I moved to Helsinki and I studied at the Pop Jazz Conservatory there. There I also started to compose my own music, and I really remember the moment when I finished my first tune. It was such a feeling that I never experienced before with practicing other people's music, which I still very much enjoy. But creating something own was really such a kick for me. I felt really proud and very happy and that I could contribute somehow to the world. So I'm really happy about that, and that's how I started composing and making more music. I came to the Netherlands in 2015. I started my bachelor studies at the Conservatorium van Amsterdam. And yeah, there I learned a lot of new things, met a lot of people, and I graduated in 2019. Also during my study years, I formed my group, Kamma Collective. And we've been playing together since late 2017. Our musicians, yeah, we come from all over the world. Our bass player is from Germany. Our drummer is from Israel. And yeah, first we played with a Finnish pianist, and then a Dutch one, it's De Jong, who plays also on our upcoming album. And now we play with a pianist from South Korea. Our music is a mix of Nordic folk, Nordic jazz, with hints of indie pop. And yeah, obviously everybody's backgrounds are always also playing a role in the music. We released our first album, Koti, which means home in Finnish, in 2019. Oh, yeah, exactly 2 years ago actually. And now we're preparing to release our second album, Toivo, that means hope in Finnish. And yeah.
My name is Rembrandt, just like the famous Dutch painter, I guess. And I think for about 15 years now I've been working quite much with my Rembrandt trio, for which I'm the pianist and composer. And yeah, we are really what one could call a working band. So in my studio, in my house, we rehearse every week. If we have concerts or if there's no concerts, we always rehearse together with Tony Overwater on the bass and Vincent Planier on the drums. Working out many directions where our musical curiosity leads us. And that has resulted the last couple of years in some tours with Paolo Fresu on trumpet, some releases with Kehan Kalhor, the famous Iranian Kemenche player, but of course also many trio shows as a piano trio, which in its form, to my feeling, the piano trio is the most condensed form of playing jazz, playing improvised jazz. Because I'll be playing most of the melodies, sometimes together with the bass, and just in this small lineup of 3 people, I feel I can be most free. Last decade or so, I think, yeah, with the trio, the career started out in, I think, 2006, so that's 15 years now. We've been playing mostly outside of the Netherlands. Why? Our country is rather small, so there's a big abroad. And we are focused mainly on the Far East. So just before the COVID pandemic, we were touring in China. We played Taiwan, Indonesia, but also Iran. We play quite often, Middle East, and of course Europe, the jazz festivals in Europe. And our music, I think, can be described as, for sure, modern jazz, although all 3 members of the Rembrandt trio have a strong background in traditional American jazz, so to call this. We try and really incorporate our European background. So myself, besides playing piano and touring with the Rembrandt trio, I compose quite often for classical orchestras. Like I just composed a cello concerto for the Cello Biennale. I'm now commissioned by the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra to compose a piano concerto for myself. So all these elements I gain from working with classical musicians who come from this European tradition. Obviously, I try to bring into the jazz field. And then things I might compose for a classical cellist or a classical pianist, whatever. Then in the Rembrandt trio, I can really work on myself and be creative and every night take it somewhere else. The feeling almost with this international lineup, right? that this Buma jazzahead thing, focusing on the Dutch, has so many foreign influence. I think it's kind of logical actually for this country because as the probably only person with a Dutch passport here in the BIMHUIS, we're a super small country, so there's a lot of abroad for us, right? I mean, if you just travel 2-3 hours, you get into Germany, right. Or you go to England, or you go to Belgium. You might recognize this because Israel, I think, is kind of the same size. And in our history, I feel so definitely in our jazz history, but history at large, that being on the coast and being very internationally oriented, I think for centuries the Dutch will have had foreign influence and do something with this foreign influence. So if you see our big painting tradition, Van Gogh, Rembrandt, Mondriaan, all these people, they would go somewhere, take the inspiration with it and create something which that I think is important, which for which the goal is not to create something Dutch, but just to create something, and then on the side, this thing is Dutch. I think our culture is always looking to the outside, to the others in the world, to other cultures. How's it for you guys?
Well, when I came here, actually I came here without knowing not many stuff, to be honest. I was more focused on just learning jazz. And of course I'm coming from really, really far away from Korea, that, you know, it's really hard to know everything, and then you come here to study, you know, with the background. So when I was studying, I was gradually knowing about avant-garde and free jazz history, such as Misha Mengelberg and Han Benning, and that was really interesting for me to know, like, there are such a great musicians already exist, and then, like, if you see, like, a Dutch jazz scene is so diverse. It's a very, very small country, but it's really, really diverse. And I really like that energy, you know. They are very brave in all kinds of music styles.
So for you, maybe it felt as coincidence, but then if you think about it now, it makes me wonder, why didn't you go study in the I studied in New York also for a year. You could have gone study in New York or Paris or Rome, right? So if you reflect on it now, why did it end up being the Netherlands and not Rome, Paris, or New York?
Right. I didn't have many choices. Well, going to New York is always like, if someone wants to play jazz, that could be first choice. You know, like, oh, why not New York? Let's go there. But in Korea, there's a really, like, a few people, like, there's a small family of people who graduated from conservatories in the Netherlands, and then they are, like, also kind of you know, putting words out there in Korea. So there are also conservatories in Netherlands, and we didn't have so many people, like older generations, who graduated conservatory from Paris or Berlin or anywhere. But Netherlands, yes.
You don't have.
As far as I know, I didn't know anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, but nowadays, of course, there are many musicians who graduated from abroad, but it wasn't the case when I was, so 10 years ago.
So
when I came
this
here.
scene started maybe with attracting Korean students, you mean? Netherlands started,
yes.
and then other places
and
came later.
Yeah, in comparison of, like, also, yeah, I don't want to get there, but, like, tuition fee and, you know, the living situation, and, you know, like, if you compare it, it's different.
Yeah, it's more friendly here than in US.
Well, I never lived in US, so I can't really say that, but yeah, probably it's more comfortable here.
And for you, Kirsi?
Yeah, well, originally I kind of thought I just want to stay in Finland. And then I had a Latvian friend actually who was really excited to come to study here, and then he talked me over to do it as well. But yeah, for me, like, yeah, the Dutch jazz scene or the influences, like Sanmi, I came here also to learn and to study, but then during my studies I came to know about the free scene and the Dutch like Amsterdam real books, Misha Mengelberg music, and that was for me, it showed also the diversity, like there's a stronger traditional scene and then more free and a lot of more, and also so many musicians coming, that creates already such a diversity of styles and
nice, yeah. And for you, Guy?
I mean, for me, I don't think it's specifically why am I living in Holland and not somewhere else. It's just really fun. Like my life is fun here, and the moment I came, it felt good. So I stayed, and things move. And
but there's a reason why you came here, right?
Yeah, life is random. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, first of all, it's I don't know. I'm here, and for some reason there's this inertia that makes me write music and meet people, and I have lovely friends here, and like you said, it's super close also to go to other places, and there's always cheap flights for everywhere. So like life is an adventure kind of from here. So both Amsterdam is really cool, and just something in the environment is really happening. And for me, again, I don't know much about specifically the roots of Dutch jazz, but for me, Dutch jazz is just, it happened to, there's just a lot of really good bands and a lot of really good albums that came out of here,
Right.
that are still coming out of here, and it's really cool to have these different generations from the ICPs and but also the Jesse van Oelers and the Ben van Gelders and the young generations, and we all also know each other, and it's kind of feels big but also small at the same time.
Yeah.
And also we can go other places. It's lovely to go to Germany or lovely to go to anywhere. It's like everything's really close. So I don't know, it's not specifically why am I here and not in New York, it's just as long as I feel inspired. And the city manages to inspire, mainly my friends manage to inspire me, and the music I discover still inspires me. So that's quite a strong,
At the same time, I hear all three of you say, likewise for myself, when I was younger, but I come from this country, I also didn't know about very specifically everybody in the Dutch jazz scene, right? So it makes me think about that our previous generations, like people that set up this BIMHUIS or the North Sea Jazz Festival or other clubs, that we all very much benefit from, I think, the infrastructure they made. Right? So each of you says like, well, I didn't come deliberately for this one teacher or for this one scene, which in the classical field is more normal, right? People come to study with this one person, and that would be in the Netherlands. So I don't hear you guys say this, but at the same time, the infrastructure, I think we all enjoy very much. The fact that we're central in Europe, we could tour anywhere, basically, that's what I hear you say. And this infrastructure with these great clubs, with wonderful festivals, with wonderful musicians, it's there, almost sounds like a great alternative to New York.
I think for sure we're super lucky that there was this movement that happened in the last 30, 40 years or even more of something that we're actually enjoying very much here, and that it's becoming even more international and more inviting and very welcoming, because I know all of our different music, like our influences very well, and I know that they're very different, but still it's all very welcome, and it's quite fun to play in different places here. So for sure, I mean, at least I'm very grateful, of course, that you come to a place that already a lot has been happening, and still that there is a feeling that there is space for us to do something, because you never know what's going to happen. You can't really make a decision in life to move somewhere, to do something, knowing what's going to be the reason. You just have this gut feeling, and the gut feeling is probably connected to the fact that things here are already, things are moving and happening, and for years, and the schools are great, and the venues are great, and the festivals are really cool. But
so maybe it's a kind of density, right? Because if I think from the perspective of actual Dutch musicians, the joke we have is that the sooner you start playing in Germany, the better it is. Because Germany is our big neighbor. They got much more festivals, the budgets are better. So generally we want to play in Germany. But if you look at large at the German scene, and the difference I think between Germany, which our goal would be, and the Netherlands, I think the openness of the Netherlands surprises me more. I mean, we all know from Berlin, great city, Köln, great city. But somehow I think you guys are the example that probably the Netherlands draws more foreign people, albeit such a small place, than our big neighbor, Germany, or England, or France. France is rather close by. In my experience playing in France with on festivals or places, you need to play there with French people, right? But I think you don't have one Dutchman band member. You don't. You have two, and you have none, right? So I think talking about the Netherlands, that's kind of a funny thing, that in a way the Dutch don't mind so much if there's Dutch band members or not, but there is something that unites us, which I guess is the openness.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think Graffiti Jazz is now my 17th album, and with releasing some albums I thought like, wow, this is going to be, I don't know, these kind of people are really going to like this, and then it turned out completely different. Or sometimes I made a recording where I thought like, wow, I'm not sure if my playing was so nice, and then that album would get a great review in the press, you know what I mean? So on a more spiritual level, it's my experience, and please tell me about yours, that as a creative human, it's very hard to predict how the outside world anybody else from yourself or the colleagues that you play with, your musicians. It's very hard to predict how they will respond to your music, and hence I find it very difficult to say something about unique selling points, blah blah, journalist kind of stuff about my music.
Yeah.
How's that for you, Sam?
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I can also understand the other side of the word, which it's kind of their job. They have to make it up somehow, and then they need the idea from artist and the creator, of course. So I try my best to come with something very, very close to my music. Of course, as you said, it's really, really hard to describe art in general. Nobody makes art because they want to change the world or because they want to achieve something. We do because we really like to do what we do, actually. So it's always a little bit of a struggle to really think deeply, and then it can also dictate your way to make your project. It can be in the box. Right. So I am also aware that all kinds of music. Like I compose, and then I have this project with quintet, and I'm aware that there are people who doesn't like it, and that's totally fine. There are people, journalists, reviewers, or whoever that does not appreciate. That's also fine for me. And then I learned in a hard way, and then it took some years, to notice and then to have a confidence of yourself and your music that actually it's fine. What I have to do is just drive through this mud. Sometimes it's smoother and sometimes it's very muddy, but just keep going what you're creating, that's not gonna change. And I don't think someone else should dictate that for your music. So that's my experience.
Yeah, kind of to be true to yourself, and whatever you create, what comes out is anyway, there's kind of part of yourself, right? It comes out a certain way because it's you, and you cannot fake that, I guess. And
but then a journalist, of course, might ask, but I don't know you yet. So tell me about you.
Yeah, and then if they don't maybe find all these inspirations indeed if they listen to it, but then it's indeed hard to describe. You can always describe kind of these styles. A bit of this, a bit of this, a bit of this, and then it comes together. Anyway, but to a journalist, it's hard to describe it maybe the way that they would want to.
And you, Guy?
Yeah, I think it's a similar concept. I just try and make music that I like, that makes me laugh or surprises me or brings people towards me. I didn't ever think to begin with, this is the kind of project I want. I never wanted to have an octet. It's way too many people. It's more than 2 cars. It's horrible. It's a horrible experience.
It's half a plane.
Yeah, it's terrible. But it just happened. And my friends, we just all stick together, and suddenly there's a band, and suddenly there's music, and you just make sure that you're having a lot of fun. And at a certain point, maybe it doesn't matter. You just play, and if everybody's happy or most people are smiling at the end, for me at least, then that's the genre, and then try and sell it however you want.
Right.
But it's
just happens.
It's just gonna work. I don't know, or it doesn't work. Of course, you just sometimes you maybe fail miserably. But I don't think it's possible to think about. Again, maybe I'm wrong, because when I think about other disciplines, like if I think about movies, of course everything has a genre and they know how to sell it in a specific way, and it helps you as well when there's boxes. Okay, I'm gonna see this Pixar movie that is a family.
I think it's just a shame that many journalists. I mean, this is recorded now, right? So there's 3 people standing here with cameras. We a couple of times experimented with when for instance a venue would have cameras, that we asked them keep the camera and then have the public say something, which we found super interesting. Yeah. So keep the camera here and we play our show, and then maybe ask people that walk out of the BIMHUIS, ask them, what did you just listen to? Well, we just listened to the Rembrandt Trio. Yeah, that we know, but what did they play? And then the feedback you get sometimes it's totally absurd and stuff you never thought about yourself, about your music. So perhaps that's something we all should do more.
Yeah,
you know?
I would love that.
Like hear what our actual public or what the audience says or feels
But it's
about what
also-
we make.
But it's also so extremely personal. Like whenever I go to a concert and I'm sitting next to a friend, we both have such an extremely different experience of what
yeah.
happened,
Yeah,
and that's great. That's the vibe.
yeah,
You just make music, and then people can take it however they want. Especially with abstract music, that we're doing kind of that. It's somewhere in a. We all have this kind of loads of different influences, and there's quite a cross between different things. So you can't really pinpoint it and say, I play country music. This is a blues band. This is a. This is like. There's something in the middle, and if it strikes a chord, it strikes a chord. If it works, it works.
Yeah.
But then probably if you would have the camera on your public, it would attract people that are into this kind of surprise kind of music, right? I mean, in the more classical field, if you, I work sometimes with classical orchestras or classical people, then the audience, they're really, up until now, they want to know in advance what they're going to get. Likewise, if here maybe the ICP plays or you have a bebop group, a great bebop group, then people will know more, that's what I'm going to get, so great, let's book a ticket, you know what I mean? That might be more challenging for groups like mine or yours, where it's harder to label. And at the same time, indeed, on the human level, what people say after seeing our show, I think that actually does inspire me to hear that people are I mean, if they interview 10 people and 8 say, I'm surprised so much, or I'm really taken to new places, then that to me feels like, that's something with the trio we apparently draw from the people, you know what I mean?
I don't know, but also because we're not really, none of us or nobody in the world, I think, is a very one direction kind of oriented person. So I can super enjoy some very 100 years of, like a very traditional bebop band, or some metal groups, or whatever, Britney Spears.
But I think that you're more an exception than the rule. Sometimes with my students, I tell them, so we work on a specific jazz era, right? And then I tell them, well, also concerning food, so imagine the student wants to play only Keith Jarrett, I don't know, this kind of style. And then after 5 or 6 lessons, I'll tell her or him, like, yeah, but food-wise, you don't want to eat Chinese every day, right? You want to have some variation. And some students literally told me, no, I just eat, literally, about
Chinese
food. Yeah, well, not Chinese, but whatever. French or Italians, they love their own cuisine. No, I only eat this, and that's enough for me. So perhaps that says more about us, how we perceive music in a more open way, that you combine, I don't know, rock music with jazz or classical or Middle Eastern, whatever. Then, in my experience, most of the public, because we will always be ahead of the public, because we are the makers, right? First, we need to hear something, we make it, maybe you make an album, and then the public comes and hears a final point almost of a process. And we continue. So when you do CD presentation label of CD A, in our minds we're busy with CD B, you know what I mean? So how's that for you?
Well, that is, yeah, it's probably like, you know, there are like, we have in Korea, we have this expression, it's a matter of one paper difference. You know, so it's like tiny difference, but it can be, let's say, black and white, one or the other. And yeah, you can always drive us to make more commercial music or something, draws attention to audience and stuff. Or yeah, I had this period of time that should I compose for this kind of thing, you know, so I can get maybe more popular and get more money in my life, and maybe it's gonna be a little bit more comfortable to live, you know. But yeah, apparently I decided not to. And then this is our decision, you know, like sometimes you have to just go maybe 10% or 20% of what you want and try to combine like what you see and what's your priority is, you know. I think that's important for my gig. Like people, if I meet people, like audience in the end of the concert, like nobody is smiling. I mean, my music is not for smiling, you know, like few people cries, I don't know why, maybe touches something, or maybe it was too loud, or, you know, maybe it was, yeah, like people have this, and this, they go home with this face, and I'm happy with that. Maybe that's the best of what I could.
Good point.
Yeah, I trust people. I think especially people that are also maybe listening now or listening this weekend, I'm sure there's loads and loads of people that are up for a lot of things, especially now that you can get a lot more influences from whatever, the internet culture or whatever. I think people are up for experiments and for things, and I trust that a lot of people maybe have an opinion, but open for enjoying many different things. I think that's at least that's something that drives me to just try stuff.
Yeah. No, I have the same. I think probably we all share this with our own groups, right? That this openness of both maybe this region where we are in and the time that we live in.
I'm curious to know how much time you spend from your what you're working on composing in a week, in a day,
For me recently that changed a little bit because of this pandemic thing, right? So I think with my first album, up until fifth or sixth album, I was mostly composing for the band members. So for myself on piano, Tony on bass, Vincent on drums, because you really, like Duke Ellington had, have specific people in mind. And I think from my, seventh or eighth album on, I started composing more, let's say, for the other. So, which is something I really like. And that developed, in my experience, rather quickly to larger ensembles full of others. So, where at this point, even myself, maybe I just sit in the audience and hear a string orchestra play something, or a saxophone quartet, or more classical ensembles. And to my feeling, that's the only positive side of this COVID thing. That some assignments I had for the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra musicians and cello concerto and like bigger stuff, that I really had full-time time for this. So to answer your question, I think that last year I was composing every day, every single day for hours. And it really goes in a wave.
Nice,
Well, I think also, nowadays I write, it happens for some reason, I write quite a lot of music. Most of it will thankfully never be heard by any other person, because most of it's terrible. But it is a bit of oxygen for me to write music. So I try to do it on a daily basis, not super much as an assignment specifically, and not really because I have to. Just because, it's kind of, it's like breakfast. It's kind of hits the spot. So I try to write a little bit at least every day. Sometimes something happens from it, and then I can get stuck focusing on it for a while. So definitely composition has been one of my better friends during this year, that there's not much happening. Especially as a fun thing. Again, I'm very fun oriented, but it's just fun. You just try something and then it sounds exactly like someone else's tune, and then you make money. No, I don't know. But so I try to write as much as I can, just because it, at least thankfully until now, it kind of comes a little naturally to experiment with it.
I think if you will start writing for bigger groups, then also some of the fun factor for sure will disappear.
Right.
Because like if you write for instruments, at least in my experience, if you write for classical musicians, they take it like super serious, right? And they expect that the scores is like totally there, and it's not like, let's improvise on this. So they'll be like, I play what you write for me. And for me, as being a pianist, I took some cello lessons, but I don't play viola or violin or oboe or whatever, right? So then I think the bigger your actie radius becomes, or the bigger your influence maybe as a composer comes, then also a little bit comes in real work kind of stuff with actual deadlines. But myself, I still find it triggering, because I'm actually delivering this to someone else who might play this with me. So if piano is involved, it will be myself. But if I'm not involved, then it's a big responsibility to give a group scores and say like, now play this, and this is the vision,
And I think also we, four of us, before we are composer, we are instrumentalist, right? So we are more focused on our instrument, and then that's the most time that we spend with actually. And for me, at least, that's why composing is much more fun also, because you know, drumming and of course playing piano, everything can be fun, of course, but we are professional, we say it, you know, so like diving into a different zone is also very important, and then it has a different perspective, different dimension, you know, so you can add really like, you know, like people can play different when they know how to compose, or they've composed something, you know, and then it has a different, yeah, I feel they play different also, they hear in different ways, you know. I think that's really important, and I always thought that's really, really yeah, interesting, especially that I haven't played any other instrument before I play the drums. So for me, like really touching the piano or guitar or whatever instrument is like touching something that I really, really don't know still, you know. So like composing, and then, you know, it's like if you have band members and then you trust in them, and then you're like composing it in the beginning of the year of the project, of course it's shitty, you know, it's like, this composition sucks, but you still bring it. You still bring it to your friends and your people, and they try to also come up with the ideas, and then from this process you get confident, and then that, for me, saying, that made me compose more actually. You know, like who gave confidence to me is the band members who says, actually this sounds okay. I can play like this on your sketches. Oh, that sounds great. How about this? You know, and then it develops like, you know, quite strong relationship with the composing on the piano. So yeah, therefore also for pandemic I had a lot of time, try to come up like one sketch a day, and then next day I listen to it, I throw it away, you know, it's totally fine, you know. But this process is so important to build that relationship, I think.
A nice next step, I feel, is that if I had this with one tune, which I originally composed for a piano trio, and then, I don't know, 20 other musicians played it. So saxophone quartet, violinist, and actually I liked it very much, because then you feel you give your art into, you know, you really push it into the world, and the composition by itself gets alive. So your work has been done, your BIMA things are settled, and that's nice. And then the more people play it, you actually see results of what you made. And I'm the only one knowing that actually I didn't write this for strings at all. But now they might be performing it, you know what I mean? So on the composing side, I find that very inspiring, to venture out and see where the composition takes itself, apart from you.
Right.
Yeah, I have quite a similar relationship to composing than Sanmi. Like, yeah, piano. I just started to play around. Like, yeah, I'm gonna try. Like, just not knowing. That's also beautiful. Then I use it like, yeah, it's indeed a tool for composing, learning the instrument, and yeah, bringing tunes for the band members. That brings confidence when they're, yeah, it's nice to play this, and then oh, okay, I can do it again, and yeah, then it grows. Yeah, for me also in the beginning of pandemic, I was writing quite much as I was, yeah, we were preparing for the new album, composing for it, and we recorded it in October. Yeah, and yeah, it was for me a lot of like sketches, a lot of voice memos. I would sing or play the trumpet, and then or myself on the piano, then figure out later kind of if like these little pieces will come up into something bigger or fit together or stuff. Yeah, but really interesting to hear from your